get back to the drawing board and try again for next time.
Yeah, and for Fire's trio, it was a tough one because, they just lose out on that last one. And that victory royale points is another 5, which put them up into that 93. But they also would have needed the 2 more eliminations in their total. So that may have been that qualification threshold for them. But moving over to the Heat 2 now, we're still on the Asian region. We see Kujak, Nator, and Alice. These guys, very well-known trio within the region, in particular Kujak, being very, very dominant throughout nearly all of the FNCSs so far. And they're continuing that here with 2 victory royales. And what we just talked about, eliminations. Last team had 43 on Heat 1. 56 with 2 victory royales as well. So a huge performance. And it would be very tough to say that these guys are not favorites coming into the finals.
Yeah, that is just absolutely ridiculous. Shout out to Kujak, right? Because you see there in his name, he's paying homage to, Argentinian legendary and king, showing some respect there. Take a look at your screen. So these are the teams who were able to just barely make it in from 6th to 7th once again. And you can see there, Reese, like you mentioned, right? Elimination points are so important in these games from what we've seen already from other regions and even from the EU, right? The teams who are able to just, put in that extra shift, get those extra couple eliminations, it does pay so well, 2 points per lim compared to the 1 in, the other rounds of the earlier qualifiers. So definitely going to be interesting to see who in this heat that we're going to watch today specifically can sort of match maybe that sort of performance. I doubt it, right? With how dominant that was. So many limbs from those guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the highest kind of points we've seen across any region in a custom stage format this season. So huge pop off from them. But moving over to our Heat 1 for OCE, Crippa, Rip, and BMP. These guys have absolutely popped off right now, right? These guys have been performing so well. They did first in their qualifier 3, and now they're here again in their heats, taking qualifier 1 by storm as well.
Yeah, those guys put on a show. And if we take a look here at that next page, you can see Zore, Jarlin, and Squeaks were able to make it, and I highlighted them a couple weeks ago, right? Because they did make it through the heats the last time round, right? FNCS, they made it through the heats just like this, but didn't have the best performance in finals. And so this is going to be a second opportunity for them to try and, turn things around, rewrite their history. Shout out to all the players who were able to make it through, the players who weren't, once again, unlucky, but there is always next FNCS.
Yeah, there's always next FNCS, and there is still the reboot round for these players as well. They still have the opportunity. But moving on, we've seen a huge performance from 2 separate teams here across OCE Heat 2. Muzz, Looter, and Speedy on top with 59 eliminations. That is incredible amount of eliminations across those games. Same with Jinx, Alec, and Worthy. These guys are not known as huge fraggers, but they're consistent players in terms of their placement and victory royales. 2 victory royales to their names in combination with a lot of consistent placement. Second place slot, huge day for them.
Yeah, OC was so fun to watch, right? We saw some dominating performances from top teams, and then we saw some huge clutch performances. If you take a look at 6th, 7th, and 8th, all of these guys put in really clutch performances to actually be able to make it through, right? If you take a look there at Jarlin, Squeaks, and Zore, they had 2 back-to-back games where they were incredibly impressive. Fresh, Rel, and Ubaton, they had a huge final game to be able to make it through. And same thing there with Remy, Pace, and Spraz. Every single one of those teams had huge final games, and this is what we're talking about, right? Who's got the ice in their veins? Who's going to be able to clutch up when it matters most to make it through to that finals?
Yeah, those big clutch moments are what it's all about, right? The teams who are coming first in this heat, it's very, very exciting to watch. But at the same time, the teams who go from 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and take that all the way up till that 8th to 7th slot, they just made that qualification. Hugely exciting to watch when we're here in these semi-final stages.
Absolutely. And kind of for you guys that are viewing at home, you got to think about it like this. Anytime a trio they take a single step, that is a step closer or farther away from that top 8, right? Every single interaction matters. Every wall they place, every time they stop to build up, every time they fight another trio, every time their trio is trying to fight them, all of these factors are at play. And it is this constant dance, pushing all these trios either closer to that Axe of Champions in those finals or farther away. So we'll be breaking down all of that, especially as the game goes on. We have 6 of them just ahead of us. But boys, what we do have is actually the Heat 1 from Europe. So we can kind of use this to directly pull from names that you guys at home might be familiar with. Let's take a look. 182 points. I dropped Tayson and Mr. Savage. Reese, I feel like I'm not even surprised.
I'm not. I'm just gonna tell you right now, I'm not surprised to see these guys at the top at all. They made round 4 of every single qualifier, and they made most of it look pretty easy. Made it look like there wasn't too much effort going into those qualifiers. And coming here on the semifinals, they say, you know what, we're gonna turn it up. We know if we're gonna put our all into this semifinal stage right now, we're gonna be right at the top of that leaderboard. And I'm pretty sure there wasn't a single point throughout the entire day that these guys were not on the top of the leaderboards. And look at this, huge performance from them all around. Same with some other huge teams. This top 5 could be a finals first page. We've got Vidil, No Riley, Rezon in there, Queasy, Paco, Raxo, Hen, Janice, Chapex. Same with Pink, Trulex, and Stomp. Some huge names on the region and just all performing on the same day.
Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff, man. When you look at iDrop, Savage, and Tayson, right? Like the way I like to think of it, like when you just land, a random POI on the map, you open a regular old chest and you just get, the golden assault rifle, and you're like, oh my goodness, like that is what the formation of this tree is, like it's come together. It's just the perfect thing. It's so amazing. Take a look here at that next page. So the people who were able to squeeze their way in through this heat, definitely not names that necessarily you'd expect to see by any means, but you need to take note of some of these trios here from 6 to 8 because they are incredibly impressive. C-Stage trio in particular really have impressed me over the course of the qualifiers. Walker's trio as well are incredibly great. And over at Steamy Stacks, Lame, Yunus, Robnik, they had a tough time not a tough time actually. They did win off Spawn most of the time. It's why they're in the top 8, but was super impressive to watch as they were streaming it, their perspectives as well. But Reece, you mentioned this earlier, right? It's not the end for some of these teams, right? From 9th to 16th, you still do have an opportunity with that reboot round.
Yeah, you still got the opportunity in the reboot round. That 9th till 16th is still a huge opportunity. If it's only one team that can go through though, and across the 4 different heats that there are, that's 32 teams total. So there's a huge amount of people in that one round, and only one team can go down. So a lot of these players will be feeling very pumped up. They've got that one more opportunity to do it. They played well, but they didn't just make it. But like right now, they're still going to be putting in their all to get that top place slot in that reboot round.
Yeah, and that final team that will make it into the reboot round right now, from this heat at least, is Laxus, Bad Sniper, and Trippin in 16th place. They had a bit of a rough time landing over at Salty today, contesting the winners of today, iDrop.
Yeah.
So not surprised to see them a bit lower down the table. Reece, I'm upset, man. ADN, Hardfire, Astra, my UK boys, they started off really slowly. Like I'm talking 0 points after 3 games slowly. They did sort of bring things back a bit, but it wasn't enough. I really wanted to see these guys make it through, but it seems like they're going home.
Yeah, I mean, these guys had a huge performance, and don't let this 18th place finish deteriorate from the fact that these guys are top team, and they have the potential to do so well. They formed after qualifier 1, so they only played 2 qualifier weeks. They performed really well in those qualifying weeks as well. Very good performance in Slurpy Swamp. In those qualifiers today. They kind of came across their match in Kiriachi's team, who is a complete veteran team landing at that drop spot. So it was never going to be an easy early game fight, but these guys have huge amount of potential. They're incredibly good fighters. They're incredibly smart players all around. And, like I said, we've seen that potential throughout the qualifiers. So it's a shame to see them kind of be out, but I hope these guys stick together, and we're definitely going to see them really high up on the leaderboards next FNCS if they do so.
And that's the sentiment kind of across the board, right? Is when there can only be so many trios make it onto finals, right? So there's going to be some of these trios that we follow, some of these trios we think they will make it, and we thought that since the beginning, may not, right? And even in that reboot round with that single shot, it's just that VR that matters. That meta will develop in just that game, right? And it's going to be kind of crazy to see and follow the story of which trios do make it to finals, which don't. So there's a lot at stake here. Pressure is absolutely at the very next level for a lot of these trios, and that is hopefully something they're not trying to think too much about, right? Coming into these games, hopefully they're keeping their mentals clear, thinking, okay, whatever happens, even if we lose a 50-50 off spawn, it's okay. We have to just change it up. We have to do something differently for this next game, because once again, it's just trying to rack up these points, right? Like try to pull elimination points, pull these placement points, and just survive and make it to next week. Now, we do also have predictions to kind of talk through which of these trios we think will come out in that number 1 spot today, coming out of heat number 2. Gentlemen, you guys have made some predictions, and some of these I feel like are very strong. Levin, Kaizen, Lyzen, and YZip. I mean, this is a trio that actually you guys both went with the same trio. Talk to me about why this trio is a trio we should have our eyes on.
Well, yeah, I think when you look at what these guys were able to do in the week that they qualified, right? Landing over, splitting Hydro Dam, they have that RPG. They are so proficient in, winning games with it. And actually, I think the big thing for me is, looking at Heat 1, right, we saw what Trulex, Pink, and Stompy were able to do with that RPG themselves. They won 2 games, they were second place, and I think, Kaizen, Lysen, and Wise have the ability to do so, especially today.
Yeah, and I picked them for pretty much the exact same reason that Levin did. But Shio went with Castry, Phalanx, and Pinke. These guys, they kind of formed after that qualifier 1, so they only played 2 weeks. They made that round 4 in the qualifier 2, and a little bit more inconsistent in that qualifier 3, but they managed to get through on series points. But clearly, based on the kind of good performance they've had just across the 2 weeks, these guys do have a huge amount of potential. And Sancho ended up going with Kezix, Forziar, and Nate. This team has got to be a hot winner for this round. These guys performed so good last season, but kind of ended up not performing that great within the heat. They didn't make it through into that final stage, despite being so good in the qualifiers. Really, really, really good performance. But again, then kind of flopped a little bit last season. This time, their qualifiers weren't that great. They weren't as dominant as they were last season. However, I think we're going to flip that round where they're going to have a huge heat performance and then a huge performance in the finals as well.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of those guys as well. I think we should, sort of harping in on them because, I got the chance to speak to Nate today, right? And he was one of those people that said to me, look, it's first place or nothing today, just in this alone, right? He said it's first or nothing. And honestly, I love that attitude from him because he is just a winner. When you look at what he's done in Fortnite, top 10 in the Fortnite World Cup solos, winning in FNCS duos with Andalex, second place in FNCS squads. And if you actually look at last season, I know they didn't make it to finals, like Reece said, but they were one of the strongest trios coming into this stage, right? They were perceived to be one of the stronger trios. They had a bit of a blunder. They didn't actually make it in. And I can guarantee you they're going to come back looking to get revenge, right? They want to show to people that, they should have been one of the trios in the finals last time round. And I think they're shooing to make it again today.
Yeah, completely agree. And, they were my pick last season. In that qualifier 1, they were my pick to do well. They placed first. Qualifier 2, they placed first again. And, that kind of dominance doesn't just change in one season. This season, maybe not living up to it, but they've definitely put that kind of work in to improve. And I guarantee these guys are going to fall through fight today. Big fighting words, especially since they're not my top 1 prediction, but you cannot count these guys out of a top 8 slot.
Yeah.
I love that you're like, here's my prediction, but it's also my other kind of pseudo prediction. So it's 1.5 predictions.
I can't lose. If I pick many teams, I can't lose. But to be honest, I mean, both teams are so good, and I think it may be a battle between these two right now. They are such dominant teams so far throughout, really just the history of their gameplay, and I think these two are just the strongest teams going into it. But you know what? They could have some games that aren't great, but I still think they're the two strongest teams right now.
Yeah, I think, sorry to cut you off, I think we should probably mention a team that, wasn't actually in predictions, but is one of the stronger teams in this heat, right? Kami City Teak, a team we've been talking about, we've been raving about all season long. None of us actually predicted them, but I think we should, make sure the viewers know, these guys are going to be a team to watch all day long because, for that reason why everyone's been talking about them, they are just so consistent.
Now, we kind of talked quite a bit about the trios. And kind of what I want to shift attention to a little bit are these POIs, right, boys? We've seen things like Misty, Retail, Steamy. They've been kind of these hot spots where trios are trying to contest. And then we've seen these offshoots, right? Hydro 16, utilizing that RPG, trying to take that into the end game and make massive plays. How are you guys feeling about these POIs coming into heat number 2? Do we think there's going to be these trios contesting these spots? Obviously, when you're kind of in this spot where you're okay, we only have kind of one big opportunity to make something happen, I don't want to fight off Spawn. I might just decide, look, it's that team, we think we can beat them, but maybe we just need to disengage, right? How do we feel like these POIs are going to be playing factors here in heat number 2?
So the 3 most consistent slots for Victory Royales and kind of top placements are landing Hydro 16, landing also at the Kami split, which we kind of mentioned before as well. So 2 of the top POIs, but one of the reasons that they're so good is because they're not worth contesting, in all honesty. That Hydro 16 is good, but there's such a small amount of loot that if you contest a team there and fight them, you'll get your Storm Surge, fantastic. But if the fight draws out any length at all, a lot of times your loot's just not going to be good enough. If you've got a far rotate, it's going to be really, really tough as well. And the same thing is kind of true with Craggy Cliffs too, right? Craggy Cliffs is a spot that has 19 chests total. If you could test that and split it, and the fight drags out because of this, you have a long rotate to go. It makes it a little bit hit or miss for these teams. But when you're uncontested, these 3 drop spots have that huge potential to be able to actually get those victory royales and the tournament wins overall.
Yeah, I think when you actually look at it a lot of the time, right, some of these teams won't actually have a choice, right?
Yeah.
You know, you genuinely just won't have that choice. If a team does decide, you know, we want to land here, it can get a bit interesting. Like, even with Cammy, having Cammy split, we did see in the qualifier week where they got into the same qualifiers with Cubex, who's going to be competing his trio, there were some issues there. We could see something arise where those 2 teams interact early on in the game. I think, you know, when you look at some of on the other spectrum, the other side of things, right, you get a team like, you know, Nate's trio, right, where they are just so strong, they are so dominant that, you know, other teams, other players in the lobby are looking around, they're thinking, yeah, there is only one team sweaty. I don't want to contest these guys, right? Like, I don't want no business. I don't want no parts. They can have it. We'll just go somewhere else. And I think it is sort of just like, you know, who can actually just be that demanding trio? Who can show like we are just not to be messed with? And I think they, in particular, you know, Nate, Forzia, and that they've shown that.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons, like, you know, you see places like Steamy Stacks and Retail be contested more often than places like Sweaty Sands is because, you know, the teams that go there aren't that top level team in terms of that first place slot, right? You know, if you're going to contest a team in this heat, are you going to contest Nate, Forzia, and Kizix? I don't know about that. In the previous heat, that's Noah Riley, Vidil, and Rezon. Are you going to, if you contest there, I'm sorry, it's over for you, you know? Yeah. So a lot of the times that top POI remains contested just by a single team, whereas, you know, there's places like Retail, also places like Steamy Stack, that end up being contested by more teams because, you know, they have a bigger opportunity to get that win off spawn and then keep them going throughout. So, you know, you see teams week to week kind of changing up their drop slot based on this, and this is kind of why I see some of these other places be a little bit more contested.
I love it, guys. I love it. The breakdown is real. Now, Fortnite fam, our players are boarding the battle bus right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a 5-minute break, but don't get too far away because when we return, we're kicking off the competition here from the FNCS. Stay tuned. We'll see you in just a bit. Welcome back to the FNCS Fortnite fam. Now, guys, we are having some issues with the battle bus. For some reason, the engine just isn't quite working right, so we're working to resolve this issue. And as soon as we can jump into our first game, I promise you, we will be there. We'll, of course, be there to cover all the action. We got Sancho S and Shy Wizard that'll be hanging out with us. They'll be casting the action. You'll come back and hang out with us and talk about what has happened in that game. Now, guys, as we're kind of working through these issues, I wanted to take some time to talk about a few more of these trios that we haven't had time to talk about. We can't forget, we got Skype, we got Robabs, we got Falconly. They're landing over at Misty. Now, why, if these guys, for those people at home that maybe aren't following Fortnite, they want another trio to kind of keep their eyes on, why is this another power trio that should be on their radar?
I mean, I think there's one word that you can truly use to describe this team, and that is veterans. Veteran players all around. You know, these guys have been playing since World Cup. Sky in 2019, feels like a long, long time ago now. As, you know, was considered to be one of the best players of all time. You know, he was in contention for EU's best player of all time, and he's considerably consistent through this whole time as well. Picking up now Falconly and Robabs together. You know, through the qualifiers, qualifier 1, they ended up placing 20th, with they had kind of uncontested Misty Meadows drop, and you know, a lot of things can come difficult with that in terms of they spent way too long looting there. You know, their early and mid games was kind of a little bit scuffed, and you know, they got some poor rotates in them for that first week as well, so they ended up 20th. So you know what, they learned from their mistakes because they're complete veteran players. So they came back qualifier 2, first place, you know, and they were managed to be contested that time as well. So less loot, but they managed to actually do completely better in that second week. So these guys clearly have the ability to adapt, learn from their mistakes, and this time they're going to be using probably the exact same strategies that they used last week or in qualifier 2's that strategy. So worked out for them there. I'm sure it'll work for them here as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of those guys, right? These are some guys who, in terms of their recent form, right, like it's been incredibly impressive, right? We've seen what they've been able to do over the past couple of weeks, and I think there are sort of expectations that now a lot of people will be setting for these guys. You know, we're kind of like doing a little ping pong here, right? I'll go on the other side, right? A team whose form necessarily hasn't been the best, who we still do expect to do quite well, right? I think the Playwell trio who I've hyped up quite a lot, right? Because I am genuinely excited by these guys. You know, these guys came into FNCS looking good, right? They look like a trio who, you know, even though they had just lost Eyedrop, they'd replaced them with Crizzy and things were looking great. You know, in the weeks, they've had a bit of, you know, wishy-washy. It's not been the best, right? It's not been anything confident, anything that can allow you to be like, coming into this, I'm expecting them to come out first place. But today, I do think that we could see them put in a good performance. I think they could, you know, sort of silence the people who are starting to become doubters in some way, right? I think if you look at their play style, how successful they've been playing mid-ground, right? I, at one point, compared them to, like, I said that the baby-centered Edgean commandment, right, of EU, right? Because they do sort of play a similar style in that sense. And I hope that they can sort of regain that form that they, you know, sort of had last season and at the beginning of this season, because I think the grand finals with them involved would be just even better than it's already going to be.
Yeah, I think it would. And one of the things about that trio that has been interesting through the qualifiers, you know, they stuck with Retail Row every single qualifier, and they made it to round 4 every single qualifier in Retail Row. And already kind of mentioned a little bit earlier how that's one of the most contested draw spots in a kind of the entire of the qualifiers so far. And every single week they were contested, and you know, every single week they came in at a roughly 11th slot. You know, they just didn't manage to get into the top 10. And you know, remember here they need to hit that top 8 slot. So given the team hasn't yet to get into that top 10, you know, it's a bit up, you know, throwing hands up in the air right now. However, they've decided today to move away from retail, and they're actually going to the mid-map area at Hunter's Haven. So they're a completely different draw spot for themselves, and this time they're uncontested. So they're going to have to change around their playstyle a little bit, because they're going to need a different Storm Surge strategy. They've got completely different rotations from where they are. However, they're not contested. So maybe this is the opportunity for them to finally get that top 8 slot, go through to that grand finals.
Yeah, I think we could see that from them. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. I was going to be like, oh, man, I like that. You know, listen, I like this a lot because you're kind of talking about this strategy. For some of these trios, it's going to be really interesting to see them kind of have to go to that fallback plan, right? They can't be attacking these POIs that they're used to practicing, they're used to scrimming at. Now they have to say, like, okay, this just isn't worth it. If we're looking to contest, we're looking to try and slam one of those 8 spots, we have to go here, and this could spell disaster for some trios, but show that other trios can shine, right? There's so many layers to this, so many things that can and will unfold here in the FNCS. Now, guys, I'm getting word I need to go personally hang out and talk to the bus driver to figure out what's going on and try and resolve the issue. So I'm going to put on my thinking hat, We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we'll be into the games here from the Fortnite Champions Series. So stay tuned, stick around, and we'll see you guys in just a little bit. Welcome back to continued coverage of the Fortnite Champion Series. It's your boy, Zekemus Prime, aka Zeke. We're hanging out. We got Reese, we got Levin. In just a moment, we'll have some games. I figured out what the problem was. All right, I went there, I talked with the bus driver. Turns out, somehow, a flopper made its way into the engine. Don't worry, I cleaned it out, I got it out. I had to eat it. I did take fall damage on the way over to talk to the bus driver, but we're good. We're back. We're here. We did it.
You sure you're right, bro? Like, you can eat those things, but like in a good amount. And I know how much you ate before, like in the morning time. So like, are you sure you can like? Get...
Listen, man, I love to eat food. Okay, it's true. It's okay. Look, sometimes I still will need minis. So if you guys have some, if you could just pass me a couple, because I'm gonna need them for these next games. There's gonna be shots fired in every which direction. We'll see trios rise. We'll see trios fall. Upsets, highlights, lowlights. If with Shao there, would those be shy lights?
I'm not going to call them that. I'm not going to call them shy lights, but there are going to be tops. There are going to be some bottoms. There are going to be some sad plays from teams as well. And again, we kind of already mentioned earlier, I want to see those teams go from just under top 8 to those into that top 8 slot. I want to see the clutches. I want to see the big games. I want to see the stuff that happens in those kind of final games that really brings the fire, brings excitement, and that's what heats and semifinals is all really about.
Yeah, I did just want to quickly highlight. You see, like that guy on your trio where, like, you say, like, "Hey, you got any ammo? You got any minis spare?" Like, I'm that guy that I have them, but I just don't give. I will admit, I'll put my hands up. You asked me for some minis. I do have them. I just don't want to share. So I am that guy. I just want to confess in front of everyone.
I can confirm that is true. Like that he does that, and I know it's true every single time.
That makes so much sense. See, when you look at this trio, you know which one of us is the IGL. It's really them. I'm the one. I've got my fake little wheel there. I'm like, yeah, go eliminate that team. Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, good job, Zeke. That makes sense. That one time where I had literally nothing, and I knew you had the gold AR, and you just didn't pass me the ammo, and I was eliminated. I feel attacked, offended, sad.
All of the above, really. Like, look, right? If you've got the kind of fraggers that we have in terms of me and Levin right here, are you going to give that power down? And I say down,
Oh my god! You know what? We're going to do this, casters. We're taking it your way because it is time to kick off the competition. I'm a pretty cool guy, right? Sancho, Shy, please help.
Oh, thank you so much, Zeke, Levin, and Reese. A little bit of a lighthearted insight. Zeke is a good guy too, into that trio. But now, over these next 6 games, 25 teams' dreams will be put on halt. It's only the top 8 that can taste the glory of the grand finals of this European FNCS. And to break it all down, it will be me, Shy Wager, and Sancho West onto who will actually survive.
And no doubt the dreams begin here in match 1. And so many trios have the opportunity to do that. And I'm just so excited to see what happens. And this is the 2nd season I'm able to cast the FNCS, and there's just nothing like the FNCS season, and there's nothing like the semifinals. And so far, 8 trios will join the already 8 that's already in from Heat 1. Shio, we're in for a treat for the day.
Absolute treat. The flavors overall and around this heat are also so diverse. You have people like Falconly, Skite, and Robaps coming in from Qualifier 2, first place overall. Statistically, the strongest team to watch in this heat, paired up in the same POI with Artox, who's coming in a little bit of the middle of the pack, qualified over on those series points. You were mentioning the top 8 moving on towards finals. There's 7 teams here who are used to hitting that threshold of the top 10. Yes, the top 8 gets slightly tighter, but combine them with 25 other teams or 26 other teams who also want to hit that spot from POIs all across the map. We will see some conflict in these next 6 games.
And those stories will collide in a big-time action, and already the Elim feed is lighting up as Joey does get confirmed there. But what also is we have some veteran teams like we saw there with Skite's trio, but we have new teams, the green teams that are trying to make their way in as their first-timers into the grand finals. So keep an eye on Trader's trio as being one of those trios to make their way in. We go from a new green team to the veteran team and Nate 4CR and Kezix. Now, this is a team, Shio, that all of our eyes have been really wanting to see them succeed, considering when we casted a lot of FNCS trios, we saw them be so dominant, so strong, and then for them to just not make it, man. That was such a huge surprise, but I think this team is out for the road of redemption.
Yeah, they put the format very well. You see on the left side of your screen, elims being 2 points each. They had like record holdings in terms of elims and placement averages overall from the qualifiers last FNCS. I mean, I think we have heard Reese talk about them across seasons multiple times as well. They've been hyped up, and I hope they can play again today properly, because the semifinals, the heat stage, is where they ended up stopping their reign of terror on EU at 16th place last season. So have to hit top 8 this time, have to break that curse that hasn't really just started yet. For Robabs, Falconly, and Skite, though, these guys are pushing in and have a fight really early on, right behind Misty Meadows.
And this is going to be one of those fights where a dominant POI goes against the scavenger up, but there's already somebody down on the left side as Lakave going down in a brief moment here, and he's going to slowly get confirmed for a moment here as the Elim Soldaltu picking up 2 Elims on Mustard and Onyx's Hell. So already points are racking up. 3 trios are already out in this fight. It looks like Sky's going to get the shakedown on Lakave, and his other duo mates are going to basically take off here. So there's 2 left in that trio, and these are the kind of these long extended type of engagements here, Shayo, that are always dangerous for the scavenger routes, especially if you kind of hang out in these mountains here on the south side. Yeah, eventually they're kind of going to be scuffed the entire wave, the whole entire ride.
They're scuffed the entire wave. They run into a team, and it might be a surprise for them. For people like Nate, who are landing at Sweaty and moving out early, for the team of Robax, Skite, and Falconly, who also move for Misty, it's a game plan. Just talking to Reese and Levin beforehand, and the things that these guys do from these big POIs is not just, stay and abuse all the loot they can get, go for all those big upgrades, and then move out as zone comes in. They want to push other people outside their POIs off. The biggest note, I feel like, and the biggest hindrance to Nate today will be that POI over to the left, or that scavenger route, that little house that has another, a little bit of a duplex to the side, and that big split down below with the flopper pawn. That Spursa is landing over there with his trio. They might push into Sweaty. They might get pushed by Nate. I feel like that will be a decider in those later games, but right now they're looking fine. Steamy is also a big thing for this seat in general, along with Misty and one other POI, as well as I take a look, Retail. Those are going to be the big POIs to focus on. A lot of the teams that qualified ended up playing off from over there. Right now, Castery, Pinke, and Phalix, these guys are uncontested at Steamy. We've seen how lethal that's been for every other team when it comes to early game wins, when it comes to just being able to control the map. Very strong POI, and they don't have to even worry about fighting here at all in the early game.
Eloquently said there, Shayo, and this is actually your pick. You picked them to be number 1. And the value of number 1 is going to be so true. Not only we've been focusing on the 8 that get in, but if you walk away with the number 1 spot in your heat, the chances of you winning go up higher. Because for the past multiple different kinds of FNCS and squads and solos, being the number 1 spot from your heat usually leads you to that FNCS championship. So all eyes are on that. And this is another trio that a lot of the analysts said that, Reese and Levin said that Whitesip and Kaizen would be this trio that they keep an eye on. And looks like they have a very uncontested, not only the Hydro 16, but the gas station. And everybody at the end game, folks, if this is your first time seeing this trio, have to keep an eye on their inventory. That RPG is a powerhouse weapon that will be able to control height. But Shayo, grabbing height so far in these heats hasn't been easy considering the elevated competition throughout this entire roster.
Hey, talk about elevation though. When these guys start off on height, I feel like they hold it down better than most and take some crazy risks with it as well. Saw it happen in qualifier 1, got them all the way to 3rd place. We saw Kaizen and Wiseup doing some crazy things as Lizen just held it down all the way up top. The question is, Sancho, you're absolutely correct. Will they get there? How will their end game look? Because past height, if they don't have, second height or dominance from high ground, they're not really looking that confident in the low. Look at the teams they're going to have to be facing. Falconly, Robabs, and Skite. You got MXR, Granjo, and Shaco's also from the top side. And Vettel Stir6 as well, rolling in, alongside Crizzy. These guys are going to be looking so good on these lower tiered layers later in the lobby. You have to wonder who is actually going to have the room to survive.
And these are one of the trios that essentially have to watch out for Mando. You never know what could happen. I'm just kidding with y'all. I'm just playing with y'all. We knew Mando was going to get wrapped up like that with a bow. Yeah, Mando sometimes is scary. We all have been encountered and seen on social media how Mando snipes are crazy. But back to this Play Well, as they got rid of the Mandalorian. Play Well has been one of those trios that's had the biggest question mark going into the day. We all had some good moments from them. We all thought that they would do well, considering that Vettel and Stir6 had a phenomenal FNCS trio season. And before, as we see Zinni and Kasperse, you mentioned them earlier, making the rotation from that West Coast on their way in. But we'll see what Playwell could do today. They've been kind of middle of the pack. We know they have it in them, and their play style fighting in that mid ground could lead them to some major points. But look at this. The intensity of the day has just started. 3 trios have gone down, and so far, no really crazy engagements. No fights off the drop spots. Most likely these are the ones that you've seen that gone down a little bit. But I'm just saying, like, in the previous week, Shayo, in the qualifiers, we had a lot of people rotating very aggressively, and it seems as though that's been tampered.
I mean, look at it though, right? You see the stat on your screen. 82 players, 82 FNCS finals appearances altogether. This is why, Sancho, it's so stacked comparatively, to the qualifiers that we saw before. Any of them you could pinpoint. Right now, these are teams who finally know, there's no experimentation from week to week. It's just these 6 games in their own kind of, universe that they have to play. It's full focus, and it's actually really scary looking at these teams set up all across the map. This is sinister. Looking at these boxes, no movement, just aiming in. Hawks waiting to see how prey moves across the map. And, it might be a little bit different from Pixie's side, a little bit more lighthearted. These guys are jumping around more, but this is a setup all across the map. If you're a team rotating now, just in the open, you're getting beams. So I'm actually wondering how the entire maps look from this standpoint.
It's going to be every rotation is going to take a toll. Every rotation you may dip into your health inventory. Now we're going to look at another green team and kit. Bokaj looking in to look for those valuable tags. Just misses the sniper shot on the left side there. We're looking for a kind of like the first skirmishes of the day. I mean, Kit Bokaj has seemingly been around forever. I mean, he placed 8th in the DreamHack Winter 2018, and he recently got into the Grand Finals as the solo invitational. So that's where he made his appearances. Now he's going to try to carry his trio mates Asobo and Zani into the Grand Finals here today.
Let's talk about the pressure this trio faces as well. These guys aren't coming in off of a top 10 qual. They're not coming in even, in the mid-tier of series points acquisitions. They're on that bottom side of not honestly being that experienced in these type of lobbies. They don't really have the practice with this type of pressure. So every shot they're taking, every good decision made will be something raw, off the cuff they're thinking of today. It's going to be the most impressive thing to see some of these teams end up calling. And that's one of the reasons I picked Castry, Felix, and Pinke and want to focus on, some of these, I would say, coming in bottom tier teams comparatively towards the rest, because some of these guys will end up upsetting. It's not going to be the top 8 staying in the top 8. There's always a unique story to watch, a trio to watch grow, finally learn how to play at upper level of Fortnite that we're all used to watching as well. But Pixie Kaspersa stopped on their rotation around the map. Now everyone going closer and closer towards that center, towards the best position you can be in, and rotating for the dead side as well. There will be tricks and, a little bit of pit stops along the way.
Kaspersa's trio didn't really make it into the finals here. They stopped in the heat stage in the previous FNCS. And one of the other teams that have been consistently as a trio sticking together. And now we're going to take a look at the Colossal Coliseum. And speaking of veterans there's Bashiroki's trio. We've seen find some success at that POI. Now we go back to Kit Bokaj and Sobo and Zani. I just feel this dense, man. Every rotation matters. Everything is being looked at. But as soon as game 2, you will see the aggression kind of pick up. Things will kind of get loose here. As you see Zani's trio right behind Robats and Falcon and Sky here. We may see interactions. Some shots go down from Zani. And a big snipe right there. And Falcon goes down. Kid with a phenomenal snipe. We see him kind of shoot his shot as many times as possible and finally finds a connection, and that gives them that free pass. They're not going to go ahead and box dive. The understanding the door has been open, and they take that free rotation. So now the Valkyrie and Skite and Robats have to dip inside their heels for a little bit to get them back into a fighting stance. But what a great sniping. What a great intelligent rotation there, Shayo.
Yeah, I was talking about inexperience, but these guys know exactly what they're doing when it comes to actually hitting those big shots and getting big swing moments. We'd see teams who are completely brand new to these circumstances pushing that, fight right there and making all havoc break loose, so to say. But it's a really good eye there to hit that shot, get the damage, and move on. Just look at every single power spot at the moment. It's taken. Coliseum, 3 trios on it. Not sure exactly where this road is in the grand scheme of the map, but it must be an important space because it's like a government checkpoint. And these guys aren't going to let you go for free at all. They want to search the whole car. Right now, a little bit of chaos at Coliseum. Castry, Felix have to actually end up moving fast as Bashiroki, Etrix, and Kylie are hot on their tails.
This is a very strong German team, and they're going to go ahead and push forward here, realizing that these other trios too close for comfort here. And the huge investment. This is Castri's trio now. Pressure coming in from the right side of the box. Nice defensive hold right there, dipping into the middle as much as possible to save any kind of tags here. Two trios here close to full strength. Only Castri sitting a little bit below shield here. This is a very important engagement because it's this little piece here, this little corner of the top side of the match tile is barely in the safe zone, but Dietrich takes a huge chunk of health missing. So far, no advancement and yet in the grid here. All trios here sitting, you're seeing all the shots popping off in the distance, and that's usually a sign that, hey, Storm Surge is at play.
I was about to say, this fight is brought to you by Storm Surge. If you don't know exactly what Storm Surge does, if you don't do enough damage compared to every other trio on the map, the server will start to smite you with lightning from the sky. 25 damage per strike. Fast Roki is having it ring right now, it seems like. Oh, he's in big trouble. The entire trio taking damage over and over. And the thing is, the other people around you can hear it. They don't see the lightning, but they can hear the damage over and over, the shield cracks that happen. It's a matter of just time for Castri and company. They have to wait this out and play full defense, because if Verona Strikes come in, everyone here for Fast Roki Squad will be one shot, and they'll be able to pick it up easily.
The desperation is strong right now for Fast Roki as another tag from Storm Surge goes through. It's now or never right now, considering 7 people have to go down and they're only 53 below. And you're right, the defense, look at all the metal and the hard mets investment. So PK, Castri, and Valix right now are just doing their best just to hold on as much and let Storm Surge work for them. It's kind of like a mini storm pushing this team further and further. And the desperation is real. Look, another 25 tag, and it could be a matter of moments. But at the same time, Elim points here are a factor. So any kind of important tag that's occurred could be a bonus 2 points right now. Now, Fast Roki here really down to it, only down to a couple minis here, and Storm Surge has turned off, but at what cost? So much has went to it. As you see, they play well. Boys do have some people go down, but we're going to keep an eye on this engagement here as much as possible. But it looks like PK Castri and that other trio mate have not pulled off forward, as we see that Veto is all by himself down to just health here, Shio.
Yeah, if you guys are wondering why it stopped, you know, that was fun to watch. Let's keep it going. There's a certain number the lobby wants you to be at in terms of, you know, keeping things underway. So 70 is that number for players that ended up being hit. Enough people went down. The next time we'll see Surge pop is if there's any people above 50 players surviving right into that 5th zone. So it'll be there in just a moment. Phillips though stopped over. It looks like they know that Fast Roki might be weak. Kylie's already down. Fast Roki gets a big shot to the dome and goes down too. Tactical shotgun's activated in the storm, and they pick up everyone in flawless fashion. Dietrich is actually, remember, still alive but gets shot trying to rotate. These guys might have made the right decision over the Elim points, but now they're going to be held in the storm.
That's what's really tough. These engagements that people take, you make an ultimate choice though. Are you willing to get in that 2-point elims? But those neighborly engagements though can cost you on your rotate. So once the Big Daddy Storm showed up and pushed these boys off the tops, this is a matter of moments. Now we're going to move into the safe zone here in zone 3. Again, a first look at Advise, Cubix, and Altor. And this in-game situation is going to be very familiar stomping grounds from them, considering that they like to ride that Cami split in this area here. So going to be very familiar with the terrain, and the rotations would be strong. Right now, starting off the day with 8 points and looking good. But now you're seeing Jatu, Kizzy, and Kefi, first time on the broadcast, of course. They have a good investment into the height. They might come their way. It's just so crazy how valuable these little hills and little mountains can be. It's not going to be as big as the other areas of the map, but Hyphen's trio is sitting up high, invested into that farmer house. So much investment. And Veto, as you see in the bottom right, all by himself. Now, that's going to be an important ride. We will keep an eye on Veto, because we have not yet got to the placement points. Only top 17 trios start getting dished out placement points. But if Veto could somehow hold on and snake his way through, he can get some valuable points. Remember, top 8 advance. And if you don't get in the top 8, 9 through 16 get into the reboot bound.
Important rotation here to make for Hyphen, Makoni, and Entei. Everyone kind of squished in even closer to the center. We saw everyone held out in bases just off the storm. Stop down, drink some minis, hopefully get that zone bounced back to you, but they have to get even closer to their enemies, even closer to a box beside you. You were planning on beaming with an AR, now you might have to get into an edit fight. Triangle, squares, and all. Shaco's also towards the center of the map. You were talking about people who had a really good spot on the height right now that could possibly have an advantage going over to the next zone. Vortexers, Warrior, and Kelphi. No complications here on the screen. They're going to be somewhat center and at the same time somewhat high. to flip this position into maybe even an endgame height win. But I think I saw Podesai up there as well towards the left.
Yes.
There's many bases being built right now. And Kha'Zix, ForZR, and Nate have taken over Podesai's base. And they have a huge...
6-1. The 5-7 is just a troll one, so